Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what is a new show, Premier League Week. And basically, the idea of this show is to base not what we were doing last season for the last few seasons was basically looking at the weekend ahead. We're going to take a look at the week that's just gone by, and we'll talk about everything from the games that were going on, Champions League, Europa League, the decisions, basically anything that made the news in the last week, whether it's Liverpool related or other club related. And we'll just have a chat about it, to be honest. And tonight we're joined by Matt, Luke as normal regulars, and by Joe from Albion Obsessed. Good evening to everyone. Hope you're all well.
Hello.
You're right. And welcome to everyone in the chat. If you could, do the usuals, smash the like button, share, subscribe, all that lovely good stuff. And make sure you hit the bell icon at the minute, because the one thing that's going on this weekend with Gav over in Liverpool at the minute is there is shows popping up left, right, and centre, unannounced shows that nobody knows what's going on. And then suddenly you'll get an alert on your phone saying that Tripper's going live. And it's usually because Gav's grabbed someone interesting to talk to and put him in front of a camera and decided to sit down and have a pint with him and chat for about an hour. So make sure you hit your bell icon and you'll get all of every time that we go live, you'll know about it. But to start off, look, at the end of Joe, we haven't seen you since probably last season, the end of last season. And, congratulations, qualified for Europe. Was it the highest finish in top flight football you've had in how many years?
Record finish.
Yeah. It was a mental season last season, and as the summer has gone on, done some really good business as well. Fill us in with what's been going on at Brighton, because we'll get to the obvious after.
Okay, so as you say, a crazy season last season. Lots of ups and downs. Lots of comments from Roberto De Zerbi as to if we go into next season qualifying for Europe, we need a lot of work done to the squad. And obviously in this transfer window, yes, we've added a lot. We've had quite a few players come back from loan as well, who are really exciting. Like Simon Adingra, obviously scoring his first Premier League goal at the weekend, which was amazing to see. It's obviously losing Caicedo, losing McAllister, two massive players for us. Maybe losing McAllister for slightly cheaper than what we would have imagined, but I'm glad that it happened in the way that it did. Obviously, lots of respect from both parties. And McAllister got his move to well-deserved move to a club with probably bigger ambitions than Brighton, if I'm being completely honest. And obviously, this Caicedo thing's been rumbling on, and we even got you lot involved. With all of that as well. So I'm first of all sorry about
that. We don't blame you personally, trust me. Believe me, I was in your DMs from time to time when that was going on.
It's been uncharted territory for us, talking about a player leaving us for over £100 million and arguably the third most expensive player in football history, obviously give or take the add-ons of such and such players.
Is he the third?
I think it was reported that he was, but obviously there's lots of arguments over Ousmane Dembele's add-ons, Eden Hazard's add-ons, etc. If Caicedo's add-ons are hit, then I think he will be the third most expensive player. Don't quote me on that. It's just from what I've seen. As a Brighton fan who is sitting here currently in our commemorative shirt from when we first ever opened the Amex, did I imagine that in 12, 13 years that we would be talking about a £100 million player and European football? No. So I'm just sort of sat here enjoying the ride, hoping it doesn't go south. So, yeah.
Well, the thing is, Brighton have an abundant. They bought well. Brighton have bought really well. If remind us of who you brought in this summer, because we obviously know the James Milner deal, and 22 years now of continuous top flight football for James Milner. The man is an absolute machine. We know this. But what else have you added to the summer window?
Yeah, so as I say, Simon Adingra come back from loan from USG. We've had a couple of successful loanees come back from USG, in obviously Karu Matoma, Dennis Undav, who's recently left us on loan. We've also had Mo Dahoud come in from on a free transfer. We've had Igor added to the central defensive ranks. Obviously, after losing sending Colwell back on back to Chelsea after his loan, it looked like we could have had a shout of getting him, but obviously he signed a new deal, and that would have been quite an impossible deal to get over the line. We've had a new goalkeeper come in, Bart Verbruggen, who looks pretty decent. But I think he's being sort of shared the role with Jason Steele at the moment, adapting to the way De Zerbi wants a goalkeeper to play out from the back. It's quite the ask. So yeah, we've got a few guys added in that are going to really improve the depth of the squad. I hope that we can add in a few more before the end of the window, because I don't think we're done. We need a Caicedo replacement. And I think Mo Dahoud really would probably be the Alexis McAllister replacement, but maybe not the one that Brighton fans were asking for. It's hard to match Alexis McAllister's quality.
Well, on that one, because I wanted to try and get you in the summer, but with everything, we're all flat out busy and everything. But we've got him Alexis McAllister for what was an undisclosed buyout in his contract, and I agree with you 100%. When we were linked with him at the idea of 70 million, I was like, bearing in mind where the transfer window was back then, I was like, yeah, okay, but okay, he's worth it. He's that good. But what are we getting in him? You've seen him up close now for a few years. We've seen one game, we've seen him in preseason. We've seen the game where he played in the 6 against Chelsea. What are we getting in this guy? We know he's a great character. We know he's an all-around top bloke. But what are we getting as a footballer in him?
Well, as you say, you saw him playing in a 6, and I saw quite glowing reviews from Liverpool fans from that decent game. You're getting a player that can play 6, 8, 10, no matter what Klopp wants him to do. He's going to play any midfield role with relative ease. He's a guy that's very humble. He's a guy that I'm just reading that comment.
Okay,
Get over it.
Thor has put in a breaking news comment, and we have to stop everything because we have to read this. Breaking news: following Reece James' injury, Chelsea have raided Brighton again. They have made a £50 million bid for James Milner's durability. I can see where Chelsea are coming from with this. I totally understand it, but I think,
Can Thor write the actual name of Chelsea and Hove Albion, please? Honestly. The less said about Chelsea, the better. Back to Alexis. You are getting the most honest, humble footballer you will ever see. He's going to give everything for your football club, no matter what. And he just wears his heart. He also almost becomes one of you on the pitch. And I know Liverpool fans love that. I absolutely adored it when he scored that winning goal against United in the 98th minute from the penalty spot. That was and probably will forever be my top moment as a Brighton fan. That moment was, for me, you're in European football. You've confirmed it. The way we came back from losing to them at Wembley in such a dramatic way, from losing then to Nottingham Forest to losing to Everton, I think that happened after. But see how crazy last season was. I can't even get my timeline right. But like that will forever live high in my memory. And when you get an Alexis McAllister moment like that, which I know you will, you're gonna absolutely adore him if you don't already. I think he's going to be a likable guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a cult hero for sure, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Matt, talking about cult heroes and heart on sleeve and die for the shirt. 24 hours ago, we were told by no ITK in the world whatsoever that Liverpool were signing Wataru Endo. He's at a medical today. The guy, 6 kids, glowing reports from everyone in Germany. Where's the absolute coolest Dr. Martens I've ever seen in my life, getting into the silver Mercedes Vito. In the 24 hours since this transfer was announced and looks like it's going to get over the line, how are you feeling about it now?
Pretty much the same as I was shortly after I learned that there is a footballer named Wataru Endo, because I will put my hand up and say that I'd never heard of this guy before. I don't think I caught one of Japan's games in the World Cup. I think they were all on at just work times for me. So I don't have that recollection of how well he played against Germany, or I think Spain and Croatia had some other standout games in the World Cup. Yeah, I have no recollection of that. I don't even remember him playing. He was in the Stuttgart team when we played them in preseason in 2020.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I like it. I don't think it is the answer to all of our problems, but I think it's the answer to a lot of our problems in terms of experience and just having a specialist player to go in and fill that role. The idea of him being a stopgap player is something that I certainly, for one, was talking about possibly doing with the center half, of just bringing in somebody that isn't going to be demanding first team minutes, isn't a huge fee, isn't on huge wages, that can just be there in case you need him for, a season or two, and then you move him on. And I feel that Endo could at the least be that. Because I don't know, I see what the people in the English media that cover the Bundesliga have to say about him, and people that watch him play internationally and stuff like that. And it all seems to be pretty glowing reviews. This is the time to give glowing reviews for a guy when he's, just on the verge of making the biggest transfer of his career. You'd have to be pretty callous to come out and be slagging him off when he's taking the biggest step in his career. That would be pretty heartless of somebody, but I like it. I mean, the biggest knock on him that I've seen is that like his passing numbers aren't great and stuff like that. And I am totally okay with that, because all he has to do is just pass the ball to the nearest red shirt he can find, because pretty much everybody else in our team knows how to pass the ball. And we spoke about McAllister playing in the 6 against Chelsea, and he did a serviceable job there, like a good job even. But I, for one, and I think most Liverpool fans were just like, he just needs to be that 10, 15 yards further forward to get the best out of him. Like we saw in preseason, where he just picks up those little pockets of space right around the middle of the field and can just slide those balls through. And if having Wataru Endo in our team for this weekend's probably going to come a little too quick for him, but he might be starting come Newcastle or against Villa, and then after the international break for sure. If it means that we don't have to use our exciting talent like Alexis McAllister out of position, I'm all for it. But I do think that there's still at least another bullet in the chamber in terms of our transfer business that needs to get done. But this just gives us just that little bit more wiggle room. We don't look so obviously plainly desperate where every single team is going to just know that they can take our pants down, because we've now got at least a Wataru Endo card to play and going, oh no, we're not paying 95 million for a check to Correa or something like that. So, and it means we're almost certainly not going to sign Sofian Amrabat, and I'm totally okay with that. He can go to Manchester United.
I think that's probably, Luke, I think that's probably one thing that we were talking about when we did the show last week. It wasn't live, it was pre-recorded. I was all in for Sofian Amrabat because he's a plug-and-play player. You know exactly what you're going to get with him. He knows the position. You look at the stats and what everyone is saying about Endo. He's exactly that. I think he's 6 months older than Fabinho. And he's about a year older than what James Milner was when we signed him. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be a patch on either of those two. But 30 isn't the knacker's yard either. You're not finished at 30. And especially, I think, coming from the Bundesliga, where it's a reduced season, it's one domestic cup, and he wasn't involved in Europe, and he's got a really good injury record. So I think for what is in this market a nominal fee, it's a sensible buy that gets you over a hump. But we've seen tonight that there's been a report come out that Nottingham Forest were looking at Fofana from Monaco. Is there someone out there that you want to say pluck him from there to here in the next 2 weeks to say, yeah, this is going to be our X factor player in front of the back four for the next 5 years?
Probably the most obvious one is Czech Doucouré from Crystal Palace, but like he's the obvious one. Obviously, he's been in the Premier League for a season. He's done relatively well for Palace.
Player of the year for Palace last year.
Pardon?
He was player of the year for Palace fans last year.
Yeah, considering
given the fact
Palace
that
has got the fact that Man's player of the year is pretty good, and plus Elise is not leaving Palace, which I think is actually going to benefit Liverpool in the chase for him. Yes, the concern is how much you're going to pay for him. Palace value him at about £70 million. Apparently, Liverpool see him at 58. Well, it's 2 weeks left, and we're going to have to meet in the middle somewhere, or just going to have to pay the money because we can't afford to be haggling.
Well, the one thing I'd say on all of these deals is that's for the future. We're here to talk about the week that's gone by, and I'm looking at the results from last weekend. Joe, you had a fantastic win, to start the season off. How did you feel when the fixtures came out and you're coming up against the promoted side first and foremost? Because that always gives me the nerve. That always gives me the willies. Facing a side who's just been promoted, especially when it's come up through the playoffs.
Having achieved what we achieved as well, we're an instant scalp this season for those teams. And again, uncharted territory for Brighton to be going into things as favourites. We don't normally do that at all. And that's normally when
you're underselling yourself there a little bit. We watched a lot of Brighton last season as well.
This is normally when things go a little bit Pete Tong, is when we're like, oh, Brighton will win this. Brighton will be fine. So I was nervous because I thought Luton would come out and really press us and test how our pre-season had gone under De Zerbi. Obviously, the first pre-season we had with De Zerbi at the club as well. But it looks to have worked an absolute charm. And we were far from perfect. But we did what we had to do in the really tough moments against a team that were playing with no fear, that we sort of overcome a few waves that probably would have thrown us a little bit off balance last season. So a lot of promising signs for sure, but lots to improve. And someone I didn't speak to you about when you was asking me about new additions, João Pedro. We've done it.
I didn't know what to expect with him because when he was at Watford, I was like, "There's a player there," but I saw the fee that Brighton paid. I thought that's all his money.
Yes, it's a hefty fee. Obviously, coming from another English club, I think it was always going to be a bigger fee than what you would expect Brighton to pay. But there's 100% a player there, and a lot of people sort of still question Brighton's sort of spending, because as I say, we don't really spend, and when we do spend, it normally doesn't go very well. Jurgen Locadia, record signing, didn't go well. Alireza Jahanbash, record signing, didn't go well. Probably the only one that has gone well was Adam Webster, and we spent sort of £20 million on him from Bristol City. So there comes the pressure of, right, your Brighton's record signing. That never goes well. Let's see what you can do. He had a great pre-season, and he's absolutely smashed it against Luton, with the added pressure of being an ex-Watford player, right? Obviously, Luton hate Watford.
Exactly.
And he had an absolute howler against Luton last season. So all of these little mental barriers that we seem to be coming over. And I always call De Zerbi the mentality king. It's proving correct again. Lots of doubt whether Brighton can do it again this season. I think we can.
I think the test for Brighton, and I've said this the same with Newcastle, is when you're playing Thursday, Sunday, League Cup, Saturday. That's when when you're potentially adding an extra 12 to 15 games onto a 25-man squad. Then you'll know where you are come the January window, what the squad is capable of. It's all well and good sides being really good, 1 to 13, 1 to 14. It's 14 to 20 and 14 to 22. We'll see. I hope so, because De Zerbi for me is playing some of the best football you'll see in the Premier League. But there were some incidents in that game, along with a few others, Matt, some VAR issues. But none to me were a patch on what happened on the Monday Night Football.
That's Oshin's. I asked the chat what everybody's main takeaway from the opening weekend's action was, and the first comment in was about exactly this topic. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want to describe it. If anybody hasn't seen it, Kev, maybe Luke would be better for it because it seemed like an MMA move.
Well, the thing is, the one thing I was going to say about, because I watched the game, Wolves impressed me. You know, for a manager who'd been in the door 5 minutes, and aside going to Old Trafford with the pressure that's on Manchester United, you know, they dominated that game. They were really good, and they deserved more than they deserved something. They arguably wasted some really good chances. But look, you know, you could describe what happened, because to anyone who hasn't seen, if you haven't seen it by now, you're living under a rock. But
as part of the goalkeepers union, if I've done that in the game and I've not conceded a penalty, I'm going back in the changing room going, boys, I've got the way we're on there. He's not even looking at the ball. I've seen some people try to defend it like he's watching the ball. He's not looking at the ball. Like, that's not a position to come out to catch the ball. Not even to try to punch the ball. It's the flap at the ball. And the fact is that he gets nowhere near and just thunderclaps the Wolves player, just go to 2 Wolves players. And the fact is that they went to VAR, didn't even look at the monitor, just went, yeah, don't worry, it's all right. It's just Man U. We'll just let it go. But an awful decision.
The only one this weekend.
Wolves were lucky not to concede a penalty, though. The Dawson arm out at a corner. Arm's not.
That's what I was going to.
Arm's all the way out there, and it hits the arm. So Wolves were lucky.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I'll come back to it, because we had a similar issue, and me and Matt did the post match of the Chelsea game, and I still stick to my belief that it wasn't a penalty in our game. I can understand the arguments for it. I can understand why people would argue and say that we should have had a penalty at the end of that game. What do you think about that handball? And does the fact that the Dawson one wasn't given, and nor was our one, show that the referees are consistent in that interpretation of handball in the box?
Well, Dunk gave away a penalty for his arm being in a natural position. I think the Luton penalty. I think his arm was fairly tucked in. I think they hit the bottom of his elbow or something like that. Arm natural position, gave it as a penalty. So it's the different season, same issues. I swear, remember that ref at Arsenal versus Brentford got the sack because it basically cost Arsenal a point or something. I swear he's been rehired. I swear
all of the officials
VAR. So it says it all.
All of the officials that were involved in that Manchester United Wolves game have stood down for this weekend. What that means in reality,
First apology of the season. I guarantee you we'll get an apology every single game week.
Well, Joe, I wanted to ask you about that, because some of the new stuff that the league have brought in this season is the yellow cards for not just for managers, but also for players, time wasting, play acting, kicking the ball away, petulance, all that kind of stuff. Gary O'Neill got booked on the back of that, and as far as I know, that yellow card still stands. I don't know if it has been rescinded. I don't think it has. How do you think the first weekend has gone in the Premier League from that perspective, things like ball in play? Have you? Because when we did our show before the season started, I said that they were looking to fix something. They were looking for an answer and then going looking for a problem to fix it with. I thought they already had the tools in their ammunition to fix this. They just didn't have the cojones to do anything about it.
The ball in play part, I'm fully behind, because at the end of the day, we're paying our hard-earned money to watch a game of football and not to watch Aston Villa time waste for 60 minutes a game, which is what we had at the Amex last season, with the same with Fulham, and the ball must have been in play for about 45 minutes, and I'm going to watch a football game of 90 minutes, so I'm glad that's in place. all of this new ruling for how strict they got to be with the managers and how they're restricting high emotion managers to not show any emotion, because if they do show the emotion, they're going to get booked for it. That really annoys me, because it's again taking the life and soul out of football. What's wrong with seeing a manager jump up and down and slide onto the pitch? What's wrong with seeing a manager so desperately like in awe of the decision that a referee just made? Not in awe, but like flabbergasted at what a decision a referee's made. And it's given the referees protection. It's given them, as you say, Kev, ammunition to fire at all of these players that are so emotionally invested in the result and getting the right outcomes. And again, we're sat here with no clarity. Why is it in League One that we can see what the referees are saying? The French League One, by the way. And we're in the best league, arguably, in the world, with the greatest technology, and we're not seeing the clarity. That's what really gets me. And there's plenty of sports all around the world that are played in our country, tennis, rugby, where you hear everything, you see everything, and you understand every decision. Why is it not that in football? That's what really baffles me about it.
Well, the thing is, we're going to be, I'd assume, I don't know about the lads, I'm going to be watching the World Cup final on Sunday, and we will hear any contentious decisions explained to the fans. Maybe it's because they're Australian, I don't know, and they need help. But you know what I mean? I like that initiative. I like that from the referee. And the referee is giving it in English, and it's not her first language.
Is it not just an announcement, though?
No,
rather than having it being explained, hasn't it not been just penalty overturned, blah blah blah?
Yeah, but it's coming from the match official on the pitch. She's explaining the decision, like goal, no goal, like the penalty that was retaken in one of the, I think it was the quarterfinal game, and it was explained to everyone in the crowd why it was being retaken. If you're in a stadium, a raucous stadium with 55, 60,000 people, and you're at one end of the ground and something happens at the other end, because like when we were at Anfield for the last game of the season and Firmino scored his goal, we knew that Firmino scored because the cop went up. We couldn't see what was going on. So it's like, you have to communicate this better. I watched the Howard Webb interview with Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville before I came on, and it was a good interrogation. Not great, but it was good by Neville and Carragher. Basically, both of them challenging him to say, look, you're finding solutions to a problem that didn't exist when you already had the tools in your ammunition to fix this, but you never did. The amount of time wasting, and I'll pick on Nick Pope because, look, Newcastle were notorious for it, was Nick Pope would take forever and a day taking goal kicks. Jordan Pickford taking goal kicks, same thing. And to me, that was probably one of the things in the game that slowed the game down the most. And they would never book them. And if they booked them, they were never sending them off, ever. So it's like you get your warning on the 30th minute. You know you got an hour then. They're not going to send you off. Nothing ever is going to happen. If they follow through and send players off for it, I hope that happens. It might help to fix it. But the key question that was asked by Gary Neville to Howard Webb, what target do you want to achieve? And Howard Webb was like, we have no target to achieve. I'm like, and he's like, he turned around to me and said, the ball in play average for the Premier League last season was 54 minutes. League Two was 44 in some stages, but 54 minutes. And they don't have a target to hit by the end of the season to achieve to have the ball in play. If you want to get to 60 minutes, 62 minutes, there was the Southampton game apparently on the Friday night game was 67 minutes the ball was in play. But that was largely due to Southampton being so good with the ball that they just kept the ball. And that was it. It was just weird. I just find it weird. I think this weekend is going to be telling. This weekend's fixtures across the board are going to be telling as to how the referees react to the VAR incidents that happened last week. But Matt, looking back, I mean, I'm looking at the results again. It's like, who impressed you overall of last week's fixtures? Are you like, yeah, they're going to be thereabouts this season, or who did you look at and you go, Christ, I expected more out of them?
Well, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the three of us, you, Luke, and myself, we were recording a show during the 3 o'clock fixtures, so didn't really get to see a ton of the games that were on at the 3 o'clock last weekend. So I can't speak too much about that. You mentioned Wolves. I thought I had Wolves going down this year. I thought they were going to be in serious trouble. And the midfield that they had in there, like, you're so used to seeing Ruben Neves and John Moutinho, Raul Jimenez, big greasy Adama Traore out on the wing. These guys are all gone. Like, there's a lot of turnover at this Wolves team, and it's been a long time overdue, I would say. But the way that Cunha just ran through United's midfield, and I'll piggyback them together, for as good as I thought Wolves were, watching Man United on Monday Night Football, it gave me real vibes of Liverpool against Fulham first game of the season last year, where you watched what you presume to be a mediocre, bottom half of the table Premier League team just walk through the midfield again and again and again and again and again. Like, Cunha looked unplayable against that Manchester United. He cannot finish. You could make the net 4 times as wide and 3 times as tall, and he still wouldn't have scored in that game somehow. He would have contrived to miss all the chances. He had 4 or 5 real gilt-edged chances, and he missed them all. But United was bad. I mean, they hooked the Butcher. The Butcher, Kev, got taken off at halftime because he was getting rinsed out there. He was getting rinsed. Like, I thought the business of Mason Mount was solid business. And then, okay, they're getting rid of McFred. Neither of them, I don't think, are officially gone yet, but it looks like both of them are kind of being shown.
Fred's gone. Fred is gone.
Okay. 30 million from West Ham, want 40 for McTominay to go.
Honestly, they're better off keeping him, I think, because there's a good chance that Casemiro could be having a season like Fabinho had last year, where just that half yard of pace is gone, and then the whole thing crumbles. Because when they put 3 attackers out there with Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes behind them, like, there's some work to do there. And unfortunately for them, the number 6 market is pretty picked over at the current moment. I mean, Joe, at the top of the show, you were saying you guys need to get a 6. So luckily you've got this insanely extensive scouting network that'll find some Guatemalan wonder kid come in and be worth 175 million in 6 months' time. But like, that's why I'm the great positive unseen of us signing Endo is the potential of Amrabat ending up at United, because I don't think he's enough to help that midfield. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise for me watching that on Monday.
Luke, the other televised game that was on, I think it was Saturday, Newcastle v Aston Villa. And I'll come to Newcastle in a second. But Aston Villa suffered massively with the loss of Tyrone Mings. And he wasn't alone with the amount of injuries up and down the league this season so far. In that 1 week, Jurrien Timber go down amongst others with long injuries. Kevin De Bruyne out for 4 months, but
the Kevin De Bruyne one, I'll probably put down to more bad management rather than...
I would as well.
I think...
Yeah, it has to be.
I think with the fixture schedules, I think you're just going to see more and more happen in Europe. Thibaut Courtois, ACL, Militao, ACL. I think you're going to see now with the fixtures, you're just going to see more and more major injuries. I think Mikel Arteta said something about it. The calendar for the next 3 years is pretty much going to be back to back to back to back to back. And even this season, AFCON in January, Asian Cup in January. Is there like a Euros on next summer?
Euros next summer, Olympics next summer.
Olympics next summer, so it's going back to back to back to back. These players are not robots. I know they get paid a pretty penny to play the game, but they are not robots. Like, they are going to finish their careers and going to need knee, hip replacements because they can't walk anymore because they're just being ran into the ground. So, unfortunately, and plus, it's not like the governing bodies are doing anything to help because they're making tournaments bigger, longer, more teams to come in. Saudi Arabia want a Champions League team, want a team in the Champions League by 2025. more games, more injuries. But hey, federations get more money, and that's what they care about. So
yeah. Well, Oisin makes a point there. It says a lot of ACLs this weekend, which is a scarring scene. But FIFA and UEFA don't care. Look at the Club World Cup. The Club World Cup is a competition that nobody ever asked for, but suddenly it's going to be front and center, and that with an extended Europa League, Champions League, Conference League, it's going to the mounting pressure on clubs to be able to compete across the board is going to be huge. But Joe, I was going to ask Luke, but I'll come to you, Joe. You're second on the table behind Newcastle. Newcastle, despite Villa's injuries and the problem that happened with Tyrone Mings, I expected more out of them, but Newcastle were very good, weren't they?
Yeah, I'd expect nothing less from them, to be honest. A lot of people were saying that, and obviously it could still happen that the Champions League will take its toll and they won't do as well as they did. But I think they're a genuine shout for top two, to be honest. I really think they could compete with Arsenal. I don't see any reason why not. And yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting season for them to see how Eddie Howe gets them playing and whether the Newcastle fans can roar them on to success. I think they'll do well in the Champions League as well. So yeah, probably what you didn't expect from the opening game for them to absolutely thump Aston Villa. I did definitely expect more from them. But as you say, we're second in the league behind them. Can we stop the count now? That'd be nice.
Well, unfortunately, that's not. But look, there's some other sides there that look. There's some standout results. Palace had a good win away against Sheffield United. Bournemouth, West Ham 1-1. But to me, the weekend really was dominated by referees, and it's a shame. And as Owen rightly points out, Everton is still shite. It's like a stop clock. It's going to be right.
Kev, and he thinks that he'll finish mid-table, and I was like, "Where? Championship?"
It's mad, isn't it? I mean, the thing is now you're going into week 2. There's some really there's a couple of standout fixtures as well. We've got our 3:00 game on Saturday against Bournemouth. You've got a tough away game to Wolves, so it'll be interesting to see how Wolves back up that performance against United in their first home game, and how Brighton react to getting a good solid win, at home. But is there anything? You're looking at the fixtures coming up this weekend. Is there anything that you're looking at and think, yeah, I'm going to go out of my way to watch? I'm not on about your own side now. I'm going to go out of my way to watch XYZ fixture. I'm looking to make
the
straight away. Yeah, I'm looking straight away here. It's, for me, the fixture of the weekend is Saturday night, 8:00, Man City against Newcastle. Because Pep was not amused. One was not amused last night in his press conference when one was complaining about having to play on Saturday and after a Wednesday night game in Athens. But Joe, that's a belter. That's a massive test, isn't it?
Did they take the bus back or something, Kev?
Well, they got the Ryanair flight and they were, squashed up like in the back of the can.
It's Endo who's going to be complaining about the fixture schedules this season. Pep's already on it. All those managers at some point this season are going to be moaning about the fixture schedules.
You already know the excuse, don't you? When Newcastle turn them over 3-0 at home.
Do you think that's on?
Know the Pep. I think it's all lining up to that, isn't it? Really, because obviously Pep's moaning. He's already saying, "Oh, my players are going to be tired. When players are going to be tired, blah 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 blah." So Newcastle beat them, and then after the game, it'll be, well, that's because of this, not because Newcastle turned up and done them. I think it could be on. I don't see any reason why not. I think Newcastle were very strong. They've obviously got the backing of their very sensible, legit owners. So, yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, that tongue is firmly parked in your cheek, as I can see. But I want to go back to actually when you were talking about owners, because quickly change the subject a minute. I know you don't want to talk about Chelsea, but Chelsea as a football club are pushed. Do you think they'll get to spending the billion in this window?
Yes.
If they do, I hope they're severely punished by FFP. I don't understand exactly.
Well, it applies to Arsenal because Arsenal have got in David Raya on loan with the option to buy because they can't afford to buy him. And it applies to Newcastle because Newcastle are signing the fullback from Chelsea on loan with an obligation.
It doesn't apply to loophole Chelsea, who seem to be exploiting every single part. Well, exactly. They're a mess of a club. I can't lie. I won't say too much just in case there is a Chelsea fan listening.
I couldn't care less. I mean, the thing is,
they're a disgrace.
We know what we've talked about Chelsea to the nth degree. Pretty much all of us on here are of the same view. But how does Brighton fans, on Albion Obsessed, how do you look at Chelsea as a picture rather than the individual coming? I mean, they've given you the equivalent of 2 Amexes, a training complex, and are funding your transfer budget for here to eternity. So,
which we're very, very thankful for. Thank you, Mr. Bowley. We really do appreciate it. How do we view them? Kev, how long have you got?
About 12 minutes.
Right. So, obviously, it all started with Graham Potter last season. And that was the start of the raid. I probably couldn't count on 2 hands how many people Chelsea have taken from Brighton and Hove Albion in the last 11 months. But do you know what? Except for Caicedo, I probably have to thank them for what they've done. Because they took Graham Potter. That turned out to be an absolute disaster, which I knew it would. It was an absolute travesty. Obviously, he got his lovely
vouch for that, by the way, because you did say that at the time.
Yeah. And we've pulled in Roberto De Zerbi, who's given us the most delightful way of playing football. How long do we think we'll hold on to Evan Ferguson?
That's a fair question. You can come back to that in a minute.
Obviously we've got Roberto De Zerbi in because they took Graham Potter. We got Pervis Estupiñán in because they took Marc Cucurella. Again, something that's worked out absolutely fantastically well for them. So I honestly would not be surprised if the same thing happens with Caicedo. There's an incredible amount of pressure put on this young lad's shoulders. £115 million is now on his shoulders. He has to prove in a Chelsea team that are an absolute mess that he's worth that money. I know he's worth that money. In a Brighton system under Roberto De Zerbi, he is priceless to me. I think he is one of the best midfielders I've ever watched, and I will stand by that. But how does he operate like that at Chelsea? You could say, yes, he's under Mauricio Pochettino, a decent manager, and he will get enough out of him. But Chelsea just seem an absolute mess of a football club. Well, any player that goes there seems to just dive into this abyss of pressure and mediocrity, really. Mudryk, £80 million, terrible. Enzo Fernandez, how was he worth the money that he was worth? I'm sorry.
I'm telling you now, when we played them last weekend, I'll give you that as due. He was something else. And
going off last season. But I
looked at him and I could picture him with Caicedo next to him doing what Gallagher was trying to do and couldn't.
And Lavia.
Lavia's gone there to sit on the bench, but for me the thing is, and Thor put a comment up earlier on there, and it was more about the finances of the club putting these players on 8-year contracts. I mean, the reason why, look, we know why Moise Caicedo has gone to Chelsea. We know why Romeo Lavia has gone to Chelsea. No club in their right mind is giving players 8-year contracts. Nobody. Because they'll take one look at Sal Niguez and they'll take one look at João Felix, who apparently now wants his contract voided.
No, that's a joke apparently. Atletico told him, if you're leaving, you're paying out your buyout clause, which is €350 million. So he ain't he is staying put on that bench.
But Thor made the point. He was listening to a finance pod early today, and they did a deep dive into Chelsea, and the experts all agree. And it's not just that one, it's experts I've listened to across the board. There is the mother of all storms coming down the road for Chelsea. Chelsea's business model under Abramovich, they're not as commercially big as their rivals that they were competing with. They don't have a big enough stadium to compete with their rivals around them. They don't have nothing. Their wage bill is through the roof, and their model is built on selling homegrown players.
So are you telling me,
profit.
Are you telling me, Kev, that something absolutely horrifically bad is going to happen to Chelsea Football Club?
I cannot, for the life of me, see how they get around this. I wish someone could explain to me who's looking at something differently to what I'm looking at. I'm not the sharpest tool in the drawer, but at the end of the day, I can add, and I can work out where money comes in and where money goes out.
I mean,
can I take a shot?
Well, Bowley has basically done what Elon Musk has done to Twitter. He's paid too much for his product. he's massively overpaid. He's massively overpaid for his product. And he's done what, and Matt, you can speak to this, what American owners do. When they take over something, they either build it organically or they throw a shitload of money at the best young talents and tell a coach, here, fix.
Yeah.
Because he's done the last
My take on the Chelsea thing is, I don't know if you've ever seen the Gumball Rally, where a bunch of really rich people take their really fast cars and race them as fast as they can with no regard to speed limits or safety whatsoever across the United States or Russia or from Paris to Marrakesh or something like that. This is Todd Bowley's Gumball Rally. He's a billionaire. He's got $1 billion fast car. And he's looked at the cost of the speeding tickets, which is FFP penalties, and he went, a 1-year transfer ban? We did that a couple years ago, and we came out totally fine. So if I buy 27 20 to 22-year-olds, I don't care. Ban me. I'll sign them all on baseball-linked contracts, 8, 9, 10-year contracts. It's hopefully, I mean, it has to be, but to me, that's what it smacks of, is that Todd Bowley looked at what the potential punishments could be and went, I'll pay the fine. Oh, no, I got a $150 speeding ticket for, going wicked fast in my brand new Lamborghini. Oh, well, I can afford a Lamborghini. I can afford the speeding ticket. And we don't have certain, I think Norway or someplace like that over in Europe has scaling speeding tickets based on how much money you make. That's what the punishments for FFP need to be. It's if you're this bad, your punishments are that much worse. And I know it's a fool's hope, but it is a hope nonetheless that the players that they've signed that they couldn't have signed if they were in Europe, but because they're not in Europe, they don't fall foul of UEFA's regulations. I hope they make the Conference League or the Europa League next season, and UEFA looks at them and goes, you can't use those players. That would be perfect.
Must challenge for the league this season. They must. You do not get away with spending that money and expect the top 4 finish. I'm fans of your club or anyone else in the league is going to go, oh, that's great value for money. They must be challenging for the title. And the thing is, I don't think their spend's going to stop there. I think they're looking for another winger, another forward, another goalkeeper. So they are spending so much money. It's unbelievable. And you know what? I still think that yes, Chelsea fans are enjoying the moment because they've got their own LFC midfield. But I still think Liverpool are going to finish above them because how long is that team going to take to click? You've got your captain injured, your vice captain is just as injury prone. You got a 50-year-old Thiago Silva holding that defense down, and I don't see where they're going to score enough goals. So Chelsea's going to be entertaining to watch for all the right reasons if you're an opposition fan. But Chelsea fans, you know how Chelsea fans go. If things don't go their way, you'll see people crying, moaning, saying we need to sack this manager, need to bring this person in. Give it 6 months, a year. Chelsea fans will be screaming for Pochettino out when he doesn't deliver. So
we'll see. I mean, look, I just think it's fascinating watching them at the minute. it's almost like when you see a car crash and you can't help, you shouldn't look, but you're looking and you know that it's going to go pear-shaped eventually. Look, it will be what it'll be, but I think the league have to get a grips on the finances of the league, because if you look at what the Premier League spends on transfer fees and wages, money, especially wages, money that's going out the door, never to be seen by football ever again. At least Chelsea paying big transfer fees, that money is reinvested back in football clubs. Brighton will reinvest that money. Those clubs will reinvest that money from Brighton and so on and so on. I get that kind of pyramid stuff, but it's going to be crazy. I mean, Luke, there was another story that broke today, Matt, to you as well, really. The Anfield Road End, the company that was, hired to build that, have applied for administration, and it's looking. Apparently they're the same company that have delayed the Fulham stand for a year. And this potentially could lose Liverpool in the region of 10 million plus. Plus, they have to find another firm to come in and finish the work.
I think the firm that's going to come in is going to be the same firm that are doing the Everton Stadium. Apparently, Liverpool were notified that they were going into administration, and by the sounds of it, it's going to be the same group that are doing Everton Stadium is going to help finish Liverpool's ones off. So, well, hopefully.
The thing is, if you're a fan, Matt, and you've gone through the allocation process for tickets, and because they haven't sold, obviously, the Bournemouth game, we all knew it was going to be limited already, but there are games between now and the end of the December. Fans have already bought tickets for this stand, and it looks like there's a possibility that it won't be finished. What do the club need to come out and get ahead of this really quickly, especially for people who are traveling to go to games, booking flights, booking hotels, and what have you?
Naturally, I sat in the upper Anfield Road last season for the first home game of the year, flying from Canada to come over, and if that had happened to me, I would be fucking heartbroken. So I totally understand it, because there's almost certainly some fans that are traveling a long distance, and that's where their ticket's going to be, because there's a lot of hospitality seats that people that travel, and I know some people poo-poo that of tourist fans and stuff like that, but to hell with that. Call me a tourist fan. I'm on here doing this show. I'm not some brand new come to the party sort of thing. I feel really sorry for those people. The biggest concern I have about this Buckingham group going broke is, and I haven't heard anything of it yet, I haven't had any time to look into it, I'm less concerned about what it means for the stadium, and I'm just hoping that the guys and women that actually did the job of building this thing have been paid by these people. Because as much as millionaires are squabbling about back and forth about football stadiums and stuff like that, there's people up there that are hanging iron, putting on lighting fixtures and running cable, plumbing and stuff like that. I want to know that those people got paid first. Let's make sure that the people have been paid for the work done.
Yeah, by all accounts, the workers, as soon as this news broke, the overwhelming majority walked off the job today. So building has come to a grinding halt. They had the test event in the week for opening this, partially opening the Anfield Road End. No, it's one to keep an eye on going forward for sure. There's going to be more and more going to break on this.
When it rains, it pours at Liverpool. But it rains, it's
absolutely. But let's get back to... I thought
they got the roof finished. It shouldn't pour that much.
It won't pour that much.
At least, though, Kev, before we just move on, at least it's not Everton's building company going bankrupt. Because you imagine the jokes about it going underwater? I mean, with where that stadium is? Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, I think Everton fan construction work did pass away on the site. There's already been
extremely sad.
So rest in peace to the family. I think there's going to be a 26 applause on the 26th minute as well, which is classy. So rest in peace to the worker.
That's what you expect. I mean, listen, we'll wrap this up in a few minutes, but let's go back to talking about, look, everyone wants to talk about transfers. Joe, quickly, what do you expect to be done over the next few weeks at Brighton to round off your window? You were linked with Mohammed Kudus a few weeks ago, loosely linked, but is he the caliber of player now that you need to bring in, or someone of that standard who's played in Europe, knows what it takes?
Yeah, I think a marquee signing wouldn't go amiss after losing Caicedo for such a hefty amount of money. I think Roberto De Zerbi has full trust in Tony Bloom that money will be reinvested in, and we will have a squad that is more than capable of competing on all fronts. I think with Kudus, that has sort of set the precedent for Brighton fans to say that is the sort of player we want to be looking at. We are also linked with Cole Palmer from Man City, who made a few comments last night after the game about wanting to play more football, whether he's going out on loan, whether he's sold. He just wants to play more football, whether that's at Man City, but obviously he knows the competition is quite stiff there. But there's definitely a really, really good player in there. So if we were to get Cole Palmer over the line, I'd be delighted with that. I think we obviously need a Moises Caicedo replacement, wherever that comes from. As you say, Matt, it could come from the deepest depths of wherever, with all of our scouting. But the name is Carlos Balbea from, the name escapes me, a French team, who looks pretty decent. So hopefully he can come in and fill that role quite nicely. The thing that's annoying me a little bit is that we're squabbling over a few £1 million on his release clause. Just pay the money, for goodness sake. Like
never heard this before.
Honestly, we've had our pants pulled down with transfer fees left, right, and centre from the time we've been in the Premier League, and we had attempts of that this summer with Chelsea starting their bid with Moises Caicedo for 60, ended up paying 115, which is quite comical. But the shoe fits on the other foot as well. We have to do that. And we have to pay the money if we want a player. So I hope that is done. I'm sure it will be. And maybe a right back. I'd like to see a right back come in, but James Milner put in a stellar performance at right back.
He was supposed to be really good, wasn't he?
He was supposed to be really good. Can we take him back on loan 6 months?
No, you absolutely cannot. He's ours now. Keep your hands off.
That ship has sailed. Matt, thanks, Joe. I was going to say, Matt, Michael Olise turned down Chelsea for the opportunity of playing at Crystal Palace and developing his career. Along the lines, really, of what Jude Bellingham has done at Dortmund, and a few others, to be fair. Is that something that you're surprised with, first and foremost? And do you see the next few weeks being absolutely bananas in the league, or do you think it's going to be plain sailing from here on out? Most of the business is done, kind of thing.
No. Count on bananas. Like a monkey cage at the zoo. There is going to be bananas aplenty for these final 2 weeks, and it cannot be over soon enough. I'm pleasantly surprised with Michael Olise. I might not have been as surprised a week or so ago, but with the constant stream of players going to the Saudi Arabian League for massive, massive paydays, and the constant stream of players going to Chelsea Football Club for massive, massive paydays, it's nice to see somebody that steps back and says, no, like, the best move for my career. And it might even just be the best financial move for him. If he has another good season, which he almost certainly will, if he comes back from that injury he picked up at the under-21 Euros, there's a big Wilfried Zaha goal scoring hole at Crystal Palace, and Michael Olise is probably the one to fill it, because Ayew, Edouard, those guys really flatter to deceive. He could become the main man, and then there could be an even bigger move for him, in a season or two.
Yeah,
Manchester City could come calling.
PSG, I think, will be sniffing for sure.
Exactly. He's a very, very exciting young player. That was a super unfortunate injury he had, because he was looking like he was going to be kicking on and having one of those breakout seasons where that move from Crystal Palace was going to be inevitable. So, yeah, good for him of doubling down and deciding that he actually, would rather be a starter week in, week out than just become a a platoon swap player with Mudryk and Sterling.
Cool. Luke, I'm going to ask you, and I'll come back to Joe on this one as well. But Luke, from an outside perspective, as far as Joe's concerned, Evan Ferguson, do you see Evan Ferguson being the next big one at Brighton that's going to get targeted? And if so, by who?
Yes, I believe so. By who? Wouldn't surprise me. Chelsea. I think a left field shout. Maybe Tottenham. Maybe Tottenham.
It should be Tottenham.
It should be Tottenham for over 100 million. Just put the Kane money, slap it on the table, and go. Evan Ferguson, 100 million.
Now, Luke, why on earth would he make such a backwards move? Why? Why
from the team wanted to wind up in a few minutes.
Going for him. I can't see City going for him. I can't see United going for him. I don't see Arsenal going for him. Spurs and Chelsea would make sense. So, yeah. And plus, I think the Brighton CEO said that they're hoping to keep him for another 5 years. So he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. That's literally what I was just going to ask Joe. Tony Bloom is optimistic with that. He's 5 years at Evan Ferguson's age and the rate of his development, I think, is very optimistic. But how do you think he's going to get used? And do you think how much would you, the way the market is going, how much do you foresee that he will go for eventually?
I think he's one of the best strikers I've seen at the club since Glenn Murray, for sure. We've always been crying out for the Glenn Murray replacement, and Evan Ferguson is that times 100, in my opinion. I think he's really, really got a chance to be such a stellar icon for our football club if he stays. I hope he stays. And I think, obviously, if he has a really good season this season and clubs come in for him, I think we could be looking at sort of 80 to 90 million pounds. I think if we're letting Caicedo go for 115, if you add a goal scorer into that mix, then I think that the premium has got to be in and around the same, especially, as you say, for his age and the rate of his development. That's what I was going to ask you.
That's what I was going to ask you. By the end of next season, by the end of this coming season, how long will he have been at Brighton and what age will he be? Would he qualify as homegrown for clubs?
I think so. I think he already does. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I think
how old is he?
Qualifies
18.
Oh yeah. By the end of this season, he'll qualify as homegrown.
Well, you have to be 3 years in either a youth program or a first team before.
Oh, he's been with us for 3 years.
Yeah,
I'd say.
So,
so what's the question? How old will he be when he leaves Brighton?
Yeah, I just put it out. I think he goes to Manchester United in about 2 years' time, maybe 3.
Boy, at United.
I think when he turns 21. I think when he turns 21, 22, I could see him going to Manchester United.
Yeah.
And I could see him being a 150 to 180 million pound player with the way the market is going.
There's no doubt in my mind that he's got a massive move in the future. I'm not a Brighton fan that's going to sit here and say that he's going to stay at our football club for the next 10 years and be our record goal scorer. Obviously, I hope that's the case. But that's just not the way that football goes. And I know that more than anyone after the year we've had with transfers out of our club. So I would like to see him stay for 3 more seasons, really, really get sort of a lot of goals behind him and earn that big transfer fee. And I think he's got the world at his feet. He's such a humble young lad who knows what he's got to do to get to the very top. And I don't think he does that in such a scatterbrain way. I think he'll do it in a way that really, really benefits him for longevity in his career, rather than just being a flash in the pan and then in 5 years' time it's whatever Evan Ferguson could have been. I think he'll be one of the biggest strikers in world football in 10 years.
I do. I 100% agree. I think he's got the physique and the nous, I think, at his age, of a young Alan, of what an Alan Shearer was at that age. I think he's probably a little bit bulkier, a little bit bigger, probably a bit more physically.
I'd say he's Kane. I'd say he.
I think he can be all of that. I think he can be that. And I think you put a premium on goal scorers, and by the time he's 20, 21, 22, he's going to be one of the most in-demand strikers in football. So the conveyor belt's going to keep going at Brighton. Listen, on that note, I just want to thank Joe for coming on and been fantastic with us on our first show. Matt and Luke, brilliant as always. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you all in the chat as well. Your comments are absolutely stellar as usual. Smash the like button on your way out if you already haven't. I really appreciate it, just to get as many eyes on this as possible, because it's a brand new show. It's a new format. Anything you want us to cover from the week that is going, let us know. Our Twitter handles are there, or you LFC Daytrippers, LFC Daytrippers. If you spot something over the weekend that you want us to discuss next Thursday night, then please throw it at us and we'll definitely look at it. And if we can discuss it, we will, 100%. There's certain comments and there's certain issues going on in the game at the moment that I will not talk about. You all know who that is, and I will not touch it. So that's just not going to happen. But on that note, thanks very much for joining us. Hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week. Take care. Good night.
Fuck that up.